Good evening. Welcome, everyone. I'm Kristan Hawkins, President of Students for Life America and Students for Life Action. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for this National Pro-Life webinar about chemical abortion and how you can save lives. I'm so excited to have you all with us tonight. We have a very special guest, U.S. Senator Steve Daines of Montana, chairman and founder of the Senate Pro-Life Caucus, is with us tonight. He's joining us from his office in Washington, D.C., as well as Kristi Hamrick, the Students for Life Chief Media and Policy Strategist. So thanks for joining us. We have a lot to talk about when it comes to chemical abortion. I want to dig right into it. If you all haven't been hearing about chemical abortion, it is the, I guess you could call it, trend of the abortion industry right now. Currently, about 40% of all abortions are being conducted using these dangerous chemical cocktails. The abortion industry has been very clear. They want to dramatically increase the rates of chemical abortion use. These drugs were forced into our market in 2000 by the Clinton administration. At the time when they were, allowed to come into America, the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, which is under the Department of Health and Human Services, set up what's called REMS. These are health and safety standards, and they were very common sense standards to protect women, because we know every single chemical abortion ends one human life. The goal was to prevent those chemical abortions from ending 2 human lives. During the Obama administration, their team weakened those protections, those federal REMS, those health and safety standards to protect women. Over 20 women we know of have died in the past few years from ingesting these dangerous chemical pills. Now, with the outcome of the 2020 election, with a new presidential administration, we have a major challenge on our hands. In the next 30 days, the Joe Biden presidential administration is considering allowing all health and safety protections on chemical abortions to just be dropped, which will permit chemical abortion via mail through reckless and deadly no-test abortions. And when I say no test, that means no test abortion, no time that's even taken to make sure women aren't too late in their pregnancy when taking these pills, ingesting these pills can be deadly to them. Not making sure that women aren't experiencing ectopic pregnancy, which is a life-threatening condition. No pre-screening time for blood types, specifically a certain blood type that can lead to a woman losing the ability to ever have a child ever again. No time to look out to make sure women a certain woman isn't being victimized by an abuser, by a sex offender, by a sex trafficker. No follow-up time for exam to make sure that she doesn't need a surgical abortion to complete the abortion, that affection doesn't set in and take her life. All of this could happen if the health and safety standards, the REMS, and they're called risk evaluation mitigation strategies, if you want to know that acronym from the government, if those standards are taken away, if they're taken away in the next 30 days by Joe Biden's FDA. This is not like taking an over-the-counter pain pill for a painful period. Women have died and they've been severely injured for ingesting these chemicals. So tonight, we want to talk to you about what is happening, how we got to this point, and where we need to go as a pro-life movement, because we are sounding the alarm for the entire pro-life movement. Senator Daines, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I would love to hear from you, your updates there in the Senate, what's been going on in Washington, and a little bit more about how corporate abortion and their political allies have been using this COVID crisis for the past year and their choice officials to force more abortions, and especially more chemical abortions, into our public policy.
Well, Kristan, thank you. As you mentioned, Kristan, I'm right here in Washington, D.C. I left Montana this morning. My sweet wife, Cindy, drove me my Ford pickup to the airport, drops me off, and I headed off to work. Arrived here a few hours ago. We had one vote in the Florida Senate tonight, and then I'm back in my office. And I got to tell you, I'm so glad to be with you all, and and how thankful Cindy and I are for what Students for Life America do for our country, and particularly to protect women and to protect the unborn. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I say that now as grandparents. Believe it or not, we're now grandparents of two little ones. We have little Emma and little Jackson. And something that, again, every time you go through that process of watching what happens during pregnancy, as we did in this case with our daughter-in-law, there's this amazing technology with apps now where you can watch day by day, hour by hour, what's happening with 3D imaging. And of course, we've got these apps on our phones now where we're these, in tune grandparents as we're watching how technology helps us understand, once again, the miracle of life and what's happening at those early stages in just a few weeks, at 4 weeks, at 5 weeks, at 6 weeks, of course, when the heart starts to beat 7 and 8 weeks, and you've seen that all. Just another reminder for us as we see these images that the science is on our side. These are little lives that we must protect. And we must stop the radical abortion lobbies, the reckless campaign that are allowing these unsafe, do-it-yourself chemical abortions without ever physically seeing a doctor. To think that they allow a life to be taken without even thinking about weighing pros and cons for perhaps a frightened young woman who wants to understand what's really going on here, needs to consult with a physician face to face. These chemical abortions are not only lethal for the child, but as Kristan mentioned, it's lethal for women. They have high complication rates for the mothers. There's risk of infection, severe bleeding, and in some cases, even death. Now, this is a heavy subject that we're talking about tonight. This is not a lighthearted subject. This is literally, we're talking about life and death here tonight, and why it's so important that the Students for Life America are engaged, informed, and able to help influence what's going on here in Washington. These chemical abortions, it's a two-step regime. The first step, it's called Mufeprex. It causes the mother's body to stop nourishing an unborn baby, and therefore it kills the little baby. And then there's followed by another drug that's taken in to expel the dead child. It's just horrible. Think about this. Again, on one hand, we're taking our smartphones, and I can see the amazing life that's being created in the womb week by week at the earliest stages. It was just weeks after conception, you're seeing these amazing life being formed. And yet these chemical abortions take that life. And due to this danger, the FDA, as Kristan so clearly articulated, imposed this REMS, this risk evaluation and mitigation strategy, on the abortion pill to ensure that the mother is seen in person by a doctor who dispenses the drug and informs her of the risk. See, the abortion lobby wants to eliminate that. They want to allow these abortions by mail, by telemedicine, as a way to get around some of these pro-life laws that have been passed in our states. And I'm very thankful in a state like Montana, we now have a pro-life governor and a pro-life legislature. And the good news is states like Montana and others, we're moving forward with much better laws to protect those who are most vulnerable, the unborn. So we need to fight back. And we've got some bills. There's one I'm a sponsor with Senator Hyde Smith of Mississippi. It's called the Save Moms and Babies Act, which would preserve and strengthen these requirements. So I'm thankful for these states that are fighting back. I know it's difficult times with President Biden and Javier Becerra at HHS now. He's one of the most radical pro-abortion cabinet officials I think we've ever seen in our nation's history, radical, out of California. But I'm really grateful for these states like Montana and others that have recently passed bills to ban teleabortions and require informed consent. So Kristan, again, thank you for the work you're doing here, and for all who are listening tonight and joining us in this battle here in Washington and across our country.
Well, we are so grateful, Senator, to have a fighter like you up there on Capitol Hill. It means a lot to all of us, and we're paying very close attention to everything that's going on up there. And I am so grateful for, like you said, your state, your home state of Montana, was the first state to pass this sample legislation, this model legislation that Students for Life Action, the Susan B. Anthony list, worked so hard on in the fall to prevent the sale of these drugs online in states. And Montana was the first state to pass that bill, and we're looking for it to be signed into law. So we're very, very excited for that. Kristi, I wanted to turn to you, and I wanted you specifically to be on this call because you are the in-house Students for Life expert and probably one of the foremost experts in the pro-life movement on chemical abortion. You have been tracking this for years. You've specifically been tracking the team within the Biden administration and what they've been doing, what they've been saying. What do we know about the current head of the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, that will make this like final ruling on these safety recommendations?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, Kristin, and thanks so much. It's weird to say that chemical abortion is my hobby, but it kind of is, and it has been for years, because it's been very clear that this is the area in which the abortion industry intended to weaponize abortion into daily life. They get away from brick and mortar locations. You can open up almost any publication, New York Times et al., and they'll talk about how excited they are to have people not praying in front of their buildings anymore, they think. Good luck with that. But even so, chemical abortion has been a proliferation of abortion, and it takes it into women's homes in a way that risks women's lives. We've seen politics misused from the beginning. The Clinton administration and these secret meetings, Harvard has a fascinating paper that they wrote about these secret meetings with security, where Clinton was cutting deals, his administration was cutting deals to get the pills into the country. 2016, again, we're just going to get rid of these pesky health and safety standards. No tests before, to verify, just in-person distribution. And now 2021, the Biden administration looking to finish the job by just handing these pills out recklessly. And the first thing I would say is, what other procedure is going to be DIY? I mean, do-it-yourself appendectomies, or, hey, I think I have cancer, I'm going to mail off for some chemotherapy. And while that sounds like a joke, it really isn't, because some of these drugs are dangerous, deadly drugs that have been used in cancer and ulcer treatments that have the side effect of ending drugs. So if you look at the current team, the head of Health and Human Services is Javier Becerra, who, while California Attorney General, sued the FDA to get rid of the health and safety standards. So now you might say he's technically suing himself, because
using COVID as an excuse, right?
Using COVID as an excuse, right? That because of the COVID problem, we don't want to expose people to COVID, so let's just mail abortion to them and skip the whole examination altogether. Meanwhile, Planned Parenthood took SBA small business dollars to stay open and took PPE, personal protection gear, away from frontline healthcare workers, and according to their own budget, made even more money. So they used COVID in 50 different ways to get money and spend money. So you had Javier Becerra suing to get rid of the health and safety standards to allow that to be possible. The acting head of the FDA right now, Dr. Janet Woodcock, has been there since before these pills went into effect. And I got this today. I wanted to show everybody. This is probably, I'll be the only guy that's going to read this. This is an entire book, which is the transcript of a hearing in 2006, when Dr. Woodcock was explaining why these health and safety regs were so important, and we're so careful with these drugs, and don't worry, we've got your back. And even though at that point 9 women had died and drugs were pulled from the market for far less than that, she's like, well, people aren't bleeding more than expected, like as somehow the death of these women wasn't severe. At the head of the administration, Joe Biden, and then Kamala Harris, who even wants the Department of Justice to be weaponized to sue pro-life people, and has talked about that when she was running for office. And so now that same Department of Justice has to decide within the next 30 days whether to defend the health and safety standards that we all know that the politicians on the abortion lobby don't want. So that's really one of the reasons that we're here today. Within the next 30 days, a case in which oddly enough, the Biden administration is kind of suing the Biden administration when you look at the players. They have to decide whether we're going to stick by the health and safety standards that they argued were necessary to save lives when these drugs were just shoved on the market. And I think what's fascinating about it, and I think I don't work for Senator Daines, but I think I can speak for him and Kristin and myself on this point. None of us on this live cast support abortion. But even if you supported abortion, you don't have to kill babies with these pills. You don't have to mail them into homes. You don't have to risk women's lives with RU486 chemical abortion pills. To kill women with these pills in the name of making it easier to sell them makes no public policy sense, and it's dangerous. It's not healthcare, it's politics.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's so fascinating when you think about it's the people that are going to make the profit off the sale and distribution of these pills that are then the ones arguing that the safety standards shouldn't have to be there. I mean, and what other industry would you allow to do that, right? Like it does it, oh, we don't need warnings on our cigarettes anymore. People know cigarettes can be dangerous. Let's take those up. That would be like the tobacco industry going up to Capitol Hill, telling Senator Daines and the other senators that they don't need warnings anymore. They can regulate themselves. And by the way, they're the ones making the profit off this.
I couldn't help but just
I'm going right to you for that.
As Kristi made those comments, the hypocrisy of what's going on when, I just flew on an airplane, had 2 2-hour flights, went from Bozeman to Minneapolis, then here into Washington, D.C. And I'm required to wear a mask. I've been vaccinated. I've had the Pfizer vaccine. Got to wear a mask. By now, federal rulemaking and law, the airlines will tell you that when you're on the airplane, because we're trying to protect. We're trying to protect fellow passengers. And yet, at the same time, under the guise of COVID, they're saying, well, no, now a young woman can just, we can remove these protections, and she can receive these drugs here to take a life. When we're talking that's a known, the mortality rate's 100% in that situation.
Right.
With the mask situation, I'm not arguing about whether masks are right or wrong. I'm just saying that we're wearing that by the administration says you got to wear those federal law on an airplane to protect your fellow passenger as a precaution. So I mean the hypocrisy right now when they're using COVID to say, but a young woman now doesn't have to have a face-to-face discussion with a doctor and can get a mail order drug to take a life. There's a real contradiction there.
Yeah. There absolutely is. I mean, Senator, does this speak to, I guess, just the power that Planned Parenthood and corporate abortion lobby has in Washington, D.C.? I mean, that they're able to push for this, for something that isn't going to, I mean, we know it's all it's going to do is end more lives of children and end lives of mothers and just make them more money in the meantime. Is that why we're at this spot right now?
It's a huge money-making venture. Think about it's back to Planned Parenthood, right? The abortion lobby. It's a very lucrative financial proposition. And that's why you saw last year the abortion lobby exploiting the COVID crisis to get an activist federal judge to suspend the abortion pill's in-person health and safety standards. And the Supreme Court allowed those protections to be reinstated as litigation continued. And thank God for Amy Coney Barrett and the new justice we have. But remember, Javier Becerra, the new secretary of HHS, supported that lawsuit. Yes. And now he's heading the very agency that's currently deciding whether to suspend these requirements. That if that isn't chilling, I don't know what else is.
What really scared me, Senator Daines, was today in USA Today. They had an article saying that in that brief period of time when the health and safety standards were suspended by that activist judge you were just talking about, like 4 or 5 online pill companies popped up for these sales. I mean, they were ready. And during the COVID crisis, Planned Parenthood announced that they had received legal authorization to do telemedicine, online medicine in all 50 states. When you consider that like 96, 97% of young women have a phone, you have now put abortion into every home, into every phone, into every laptop. And they were ready. I mean, and so according to the USA Today today, they said that those companies had suspended because the REMs were momentarily back. But momentarily back, you know, we are in danger if the REMs fall, if the health and safety standards fall, of weaponizing our phones for abortion.
Well, Kristi, don't forget, as you said, a great point, is that you think about our phones. As we've got these big tech oligarchs now in Silicon Valley that are censoring conservative thought, pro-life videos, pro-life statements, pro-life thoughts is being censored by these big tech companies.
Right.
At the same time, they've got the demographics here. They know exactly a young woman, certain age, race. They've got it all, even the economics in terms of the demographic profile. So just that point, they'll proactively target that inbound here on social media, so forth, advertising here for these kind of pills.
You're absolutely right, Senator. And it's very scary when you think about, I think in the pro-life movement, we tend to think of abortions only happening in dingy abortion facilities at the end of town on the other side of the railroad tracks, and there's protesters or prayer warriors in front of those abortion facilities. Their goal, what Kristi said earlier, is that they want to make abortion happen in your home. They want abortions on college campuses. They want an abortion to, a woman be able to walk into a CVS, get the drug, or, get her Amazon package and be able to start an abortion immediately. They want abortions everywhere. They want them every single place. And that's what we saw, for 3 years, we fought in California to stop a horrific law that was signed into law last year by Governor Gavin Newsom. It was one of his first actions as governor, that now will mandate that every state university in the state of California will have to dispense these chemical abortion pills. And guess who gets to make money and come in as the outside contractor and advise to the campus health centers? Planned Parenthood. Women are going to die on college campuses in California. And now they're trying to export what they did there in California to other states. And this is why we at Students Life Action have gotten really involved, stepped up our game in a significant way this spring legislative session. And we've been active in state capitals across the country. The mandate I gave to our team this year was I want to be active in every single state capital. I think we're actually going to get very close to being engaged in at least one pro-life bill fight in every single state capital. We have 12 states and counting right now that we are working to ban the online sale of chemical abortion pills. And that's not even all the states we're working on, heartbeat legislation, other types of legislation. But we need you all to get involved. And the reason we're coming to you tonight is to give you this background, to explain to you kind of what happened historically, what's going to happen, because we need you, the pro-life generation, to spread the word about what is happening in Washington, D.C., and how we may only have a couple of weeks left before the Biden administration wipes out every common sense health and safety standard on these dangerous chemical abortion pill cocktails. So we need you all to get involved. The first thing you can do is you can go to thisischemicalabortion.com, sign our petition going to the Biden administration. We'll be emailing and faxing that petition. You can also, on that site, there is a short clip from the movie Unplanned of Abby Johnson, depicts Abby Johnson's chemical abortion. I think this is one of the most powerful scenes in the entire movie of Unplanned. Get that video and spread it far and wide online so women can understand what a painful and gruesome abortion they're signing themselves up for. Also on thisischemicalabortion.com, we have all the information you need to direct a friend or a woman in need to the Abortion Pill Reversal Network, which is extremely important to get the word out about that. Senator Daines, what else can people at home, students, the pro-life generation do right now on this issue while we have a couple of weeks?
Well, you've hit it there, Kristin, but just fight back. Make sure you place it's a phone call, email, make your voice known to your respective members of the House and the Senate from your home state. It means a lot when you have somebody from your own state calling in. So whatever state you're in, make sure you know who your member of Congress and says, make a phone call and make sure your voice is heard. Make sure they're aware of that Save Moms and Babies Act that Senator Highsmith in Mississippi has put it in play here. I'm a co-sponsor of it. That would preserve and strengthen these requirements we're talking about here tonight. And the second is make sure you're in tune with what's going on at the state level. They're fighting back. And I think in terms of strategy, it's a really important part of what we need to do here. I'm very proud of my home state of Montana. We passed a bill to ban these tele-abortions and require informed consent. Put the pressure at the state level as well. Those are the two things I'd ask tonight to consider and stay loud on this issue.
Yeah, so you're telling us as elected official, the most annoying thing for your office would be thousands of calls of people from your state, right? That gets everyone's attention in the office.
If I have a bunch of great young Montanans telling us that we should be getting behind the Save Mountains, that won't be annoying. That'll be wonderful.
I'm always trying to look at what gets our elected officials' attention, but I think phone calls are so important.
Remember, elected officials, we serve here because voters say that we can. So when your home state voters, your home district voters are voicing their opinion, that's the loudest and strongest voice of any voice here on Capitol Hill.
That's exactly right. And if you don't know who your House of Representatives member or your 2 U.S. senators are, just go to house.gov or senate.gov. You put in your zip code, your address. It'll pop right up. It'll give you their Washington, D.C. office number, as well as their district numbers. And I encourage you, when you're making phone calls tomorrow and this week, call Washington, D.C. and call the district offices. Just go right down the line. But make sure you go to thisischemicalabortion.com first, sign the petition so we can contact you with further action items as we get further and further down this fight, because this is not going away. And this is only really, sadly, the first step. This is why we fought so hard in the election, guys. This is why we say elections have consequences and why it's critical for us to vote for life first. So next time when you get an email from Students for Life Action asking you to sign up to make phone calls, send personal text messages, or go door knocking like we did in Montana, despite the snowstorm for Senator Daines there, make sure you do it, because this is why it's so important for us to be engaged in public policy in the pro-life movement. Our movement, as you all know, is not a political movement. We are a human rights movement, and we're proud of that fact. But public policy has has its hands in the pro-life movement, and it's extremely important for us to be involved because lives are at stake. So I hope you'll go to thisischemicalabortion.com and get started, sign the petition, and we'll get you plugged in. Thanks, guys. Good evening.
Thanks, Kristin. Thanks, Senator.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. That's great. Thanks.